Congratulations, you've made it back to the nursandcom podcast. We are going to read the published short story fiction, which is The Mental Files. Sheep Among Wolves is book 1, and this is a 6-book series that is available on Amazon in paperback and Kindle, and I'm going to read it here for free, and then I'm going to break it apart as it relates to our own real-life drama and inner thought struggles. So we're going to get started on Chapter 6, Leon and Lita's Date. And before we do that, I'm just going to recap to catch you up where we're at. So in the first chapters, you met Officer Leon and mobile crisis caseworker Lita, who helped rescue the young lady who is out on the street fending for herself, dealing with frightening hallucinations, and also almost becoming prey to the dangerous street predators and the evil plans they had for her. So for now, they have her at the ER. She's safe for right now. And then the officer and the caseworker had to go back to the bridge to help Joshua, who has peered on the edge, contemplating the unthinkable. And on the way there, they're feeling tired. The single handsome officer asks Lita if she wants to get something to eat after their last mission. She doesn't know if it's a date, but she is hungry and tired, so she agrees. And then he says, great, it's a date. So now she's getting butterflies in her stomach, wondering what's going to happen. So thankfully they've rescued Joshua and they've dropped him off at the ER as the young lady made her way to the hospital, and they're on their way to the date. Lita's getting nervous, but at least they're going to go grab something to eat. So we'll jump into Chapter 6, Leon and Lita's Date. Chapter 6, Leon and Lita's Date. Are you ready? Here goes. Pulling into the diner, Leon opened the door for the lonely caseworker. Wow, he's a gentleman too, she thought. As they found a table and sat down with their menus, Leon started to ask Lita about her life. So, what is a beautiful lady like you doing without a boyfriend? Asked Lita's date. Well, I'm just so busy with work all the time, and I don't go out much, replied the reserved caseworker, who had not been out on a date in a long time. So, what do you do for fun then? Queried the confident officer. I used to be involved in my church outreach, but we had a change in leadership and I haven't been back much, responded Lita. Ha! Church! Chuckled the officer. Feeling a little uncomfortable about his response, Lita returned the question. What about you? Oh, I usually hang out with the guys at sports time after work. You should check it out sometime, responded the bachelor. Oh, well, maybe, I don't know, answered Lita, as she remembered there was a popular bar down the street. Yeah, you should loosen up a little. Have a few drinks with me one night, asserted Leon. But, I don't really drink, answered the caseworker as a little red flag popped up in her conscience. What? No way. Oh, well, I am always attracted to the good girls. That's cool, answered the tall man sitting across from Lita. Feeling relieved for the change of subject, Lita ignored her nagging conscience as the flirtatious officer continued to show her attention. Something that she hadn't had from a guy in a long time. And that's the end of Chapter 6. So before we jump into the next chapter on the next edition, we're going to jump into the files of nursandcom as this relates to real-life struggles and thought battles. Spin that wheel. Spin the wheel. So where did we land? in the files of nursandcom on that website. Well, of course, we've landed on the Relationship RX tab. So let's jump into that and get some real life help for relationships and dating. Do you ever get tired of making the same old mistakes, especially in relationships? Feel like you're going around in circles over and over, maybe, as I said, just making those mistakes and having regrets? Well, we need to get some wisdom. Think about investments that you make in life. You might save up and plan, do a lot of planning for school, for a house, save for that. Many different things before you choose your career. Your whole life you might spend planning on how you're going to live it. Well, let's pump the brakes and think about that for our relationships and slow down so we can make wise decisions. Pump those brakes. Where can we get some wisdom? All right, pump the brakes. We're going to go to Proverbs 5. Proverbs has a lot of wisdom for just about everything you can think about in life, for your relationships, for money, for dealing with gossipers, for dealing with situations at work, at home, planning for your future. Anything you could imagine you can find in the book of Proverbs. And even there's a lot to be said about finding and having the right relationships. And in chapter 5, it talks about getting wisdom and understanding before you do anything. And then it goes on even teaching you how to avoid certain type of relationships that will lead you to misery and regret. And who wants misery and regret? Nobody. So check out Proverbs, the book of wisdom. And also on the relationship prescriptions tab, I left you probably the best series that I've ever encountered in many years on relationships. If you're starting a relationship, thinking about dating, no matter your age, or if even a family member, a child, an older person, whoever is thinking about relationships and dating, you really want to see this. And I included it on my website to make it easy to find. And it's by Andy Stanley. And it's a 4-part series, and you really promise you don't want to miss this. It's going to help you so much to think about what you want in a relationship, to avoid pitfalls, and just start making a plan for that. In part 1, he starts with, it's called the right person myth. And it talks about sometimes how we think if we just find that right person, it'll be the perfect relationship and everything will be just right. Well, he kind of breaks that apart and gives us a dose of reality and what to look for, how to work on our own selves before we jump into that world of dating and relationships. So helpful. And then part 2 is Gentleman's Club. It talks about kind of the thought processes, and especially found in society and media and ads, of the relevant and prominent thinking about people and relationships and women, and he kind of breaks that apart and gives us some wisdom for that, things to look out for no matter which side of the fence you're on. And then chapter 3 is Designer Sex, talking about how God really cares about our whole life. He's never trying to stop us from having any fun, but knowing that we can end up with a life of regret and misery, hurting not just ourselves but others. He gives us a better plan on how to wait and just what to look out for. And then he wraps it up in the 4th part, which is If I Were You, and he gives us a great list to think about some things in our life, and to think about this list before we get into serious relationships, any relationships, so that it will be successful and we won't have misery and regret, but we'll be happy and satisfied and have a long-term great relationship that we can be proud of. So you definitely, I promise you, want to check that out. And you can get to it on nursand.com on the relationship tab. It's also available online, but I put it here so you can just get it all together and don't have to search around for it. And another great resource I left, you'll see there also on the Relationship RX tab, is a great book called Sex and the City Uncovered. And that's by Marion Jordan. And that's really great. She kind of talked about her own life, and well, she was also counseling young women, but it applies to young women and men, really people of all ages, thinking about dating and getting into relationships. Just once again, how the relevant prominent culture and the thought processes going on around us might lead us down certain paths or certain ways of thinking, but just breaking that apart as it relates to a better way of life and ways that, once again, don't lead to misery and regret, so we can have great relationships and not have a lot of sadness and consequences from those. So you can find that on nursandcom on the relationshiprx tab. And there's a lot of other good resources online. One about principles that will change your life when you're thinking about dating. We're reminded to stop looking for the one, kind of like Andy Stanley did on his series, thinking if we just find that perfect person that everyone's going to be, everything's going to be great. When you are dating, you want to think about the long term. Is this person, could they end up being someone that you could settle down with? Otherwise, maybe you're kind of wasting your time and you want to pump those brakes and back up. And especially for Christians, you want to be equally yoked. So you're going to want to date someone with your same beliefs and your same viewpoints, or you're going to end up with, what is it? Regret and misery. We don't want that. You don't want to compromise your values. You don't want to just go on these quick sport types dates. Looking for someone with the same mindset as you, someone that treats you right, and thinking about putting God first, of course, because He knows how to fulfill your joy and your peace and give you that purpose for your life. So think about these things, pump those brakes, use some wisdom, think before you just jump into the game, especially if you're getting those nagging red flags. You want to listen to that. And this is for men and women, no matter your age, as I said. Relationships are important, and they're going to color our whole lives and affect us and others around us. So, you had chapter 6 from the Mental Files, where we went on Leon and Lita's date. Oh boy! And then we learned about relationships, wisdom, pumping those brakes so we don't have misery and regret. And the next time, we'll get into the Mental Files, Book 1, Sheep Among Wolves, and Chapter 7. And if you want to just check out the whole series while you're waiting, I just finished the complete season, and it's The Mental Files by Nurse Ann with an E, and that's on Amazon. And if you get Book 10, it's The Mental Files, the first 6 stories edition. And you're going to get the whole series, and that includes the season finale, which is out of control. You're going to want to check that out. You're going to get a frontline workers to ride along with those frontline workers to see if they can rescue those in crisis, mental, physical, and spiritual. You're going to want to buckle up. Those shifts are 24/7. It's a ride filled with action, danger, suspense, romance, faith, and inspiration. I'm a nurse of 29 years now and still going, so I present this series to get an inside look and also to promote empathy for struggles worldwide. This is a series with adventure, awareness, advocacy, and action. The Mental Files by Nurse Ann. So when you're pursuing relationships, don't forget you don't want misery and regret. See you on the next nursandcom podcast.